And joining us now with more on these latest developments are Professor Kobi Michael, senior researcher at the Institute for National Security Studies, or INSS, and Misgav. With you, U.S. President Donald Trump is once again issuing an ultimatum to Hamas. I've lost count, but he's issued many such ultimatums before, promising all hell will break loose. Is Hamas even taking him seriously at this point? Is there an intention on behalf of Hamas to actually return the hostages, to disarm?
I really doubt it, at least at this point. Maybe President Trump will surprise Hamas, and this is another misperception of Hamas. But I think that Hamas feels very, I would say, safe and secured and guaranteed because of Qatar and Turkey. And Hamas knows that both will do their utmost efforts in order to preserve their interests. I mean Hamas interests, because Hamas interests are the Turkish and the Qatari interests in the very same time. And they want to waste time and to earn time. They use all the issue of the bodies, the dead hostages, as a sort of manipulation in order to reach to some achievements with regard to the redeployment of the IDF, with regard to the humanitarian aid supply, and mainly with regard to their disarmament. And at least as far as I understand Hamas now, I'm not sure that Hamas is very impressed from these ultimatums, but as I said before, they might be surprised.
I want to also address this report in the New York Times about the U.S. sending its own surveillance drones so as not to rely on Israeli intelligence. I mean, what do you make of this?
I think that President Trump and the American administration are making their utmost efforts in order to ensure that nobody will destroy the party. And the party is the end of the war. And the end of the war is the ultimate condition that can open the path towards the realization of the grand vision of President Trump with regard to the broader Middle East. Now, we have to understand that there are no free meals, and all the plan of President Trump eventually was cooked or baked by Israel. By Prime Minister Netanyahu, Minister Ron Dermer, together with Witkoff and Kushner, and President Trump approved it. I think that the plan as a whole is a fantastic thing for Israel, because by implementing all the plan in its entirety, Israel will be able to achieve all the 5 objectives of the war. And this will be the ultimate victory for Israel and the ultimate defeat of Hamas. Now, President Trump put all of his prestige on this plan, and in his eyes, this plan is a very crucial condition for his other plans. And when we are talking about these other plans, we are talking not about the Middle East. We are talking about Southeast Asia, where he is visiting just today. We are talking about Europe, Ukraine. We are talking about China. So I think that the Americans are trying to do their best efforts in order to assure that everything will go according to their plan.
Mm-hmm. And so this leads, to the next question, which is, has the United States essentially taken control over Gaza, the operations in Gaza? Prime Minister Netanyahu is insisting that this is a joint operation, but the U.S. seems to be the one calling all the shots. I mean, is that your assessment as well?
The question is addressed to me?
Yes, I'd like to hear your thoughts.
Yes, I think that Israel should be pleased from the idea that there is such a deep involvement of the Americans here, because this is something that signals, that indicates the depth of the American commitment. And the idea that the United States, as well as the Arab countries here in the region and some other countries beyond the region, are taking responsibility over the problem, which is the Gaza Strip and the Palestinians and Hamas, And all of this burden is not does not remain only on the shoulders of the State of Israel. Is something that the State of Israel should be pleased. But on the other hand, Israel has to cooperate mainly with the American administration, and President Trump is the ultimate key for the success of this plan and for the realization of the Israeli objectives of the war. And therefore, I think that Israel has to do all the efforts in order to cooperate with the American administration, with President Trump, in order to give the best chances, first of all, to the realization of the plan, and secondly, to broaden and to deepen the legitimacy that Israel will need in the future in order to resume the military operations against Hamas in order to dismantle Hamas in the case that Hamas will not comply. And if you are asking me, I think that the probability of this scenario is a bit higher than the probability that the plan of President Trump will be realized in its entirety.
What about Qatar? Kobi, you mentioned that, this peace plan was put together with Trump, Jared Kushner, Steve Witkoff, Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu, and Ron Dermer. What about Qatar? Trump has also said that Qatar will send troops to Gaza, something Israel has opposed. So what is Qatar's role in all of this? And Kobi, do you agree with that? I mean, Secretary of State Rubio said during his visit that Israel will have the ultimate say in who gets to put boots on the ground. But J.D. Vance said, or hinted that Qatar, Turkey will still have a role. So what do you make of this?
First of all, I agree with Avital, but I would like to add something to the things that have been said by Avital. It's not only the idea of the military involvement. In this regard, I think that it will be pretty easy for Israel to reach to an understanding with the American administration. The problem, generally speaking, is the Turkish and the Qatari influence. And they can get influence, and we see how Qatar get influence all over the globe, okay, without troops, by money. And therefore I think that Israel must be aware, and I'm sure that Israel is already aware of that. And here Israel will have some more difficulties to convince the American administration to minimize as much as possible the Turkish and the Qatari roles and influence in the Gaza Strip, including in the reconstruction process. Because once they will be there, this will be boots on the ground, not military boots on the ground, but this will be, I would say, political boots on the ground. And it is something which is not less dangerous in my eyes than military influence, because they will use their presence there in the Gaza Strip in order to support Hamas, in order to support the political entity of Hamas and its influence behind the scenes, because the interests of Hamas, as I said before, are the interests of Turkey and Qatar as well. And now I think that this question is connected to your previous question about the depth of the American involvement. And if Israel wants to influence on the American administration and to reach to understanding with regard to Turkey and Qatar, if Israel wants that the American administration will be open to the Israeli demands or the Israeli interests, then Israel has to show good faith and goodwill with all the other parts of the plan and to enable the Americans to do what they have to do in order to realize the plan. Because otherwise Israel will not be able to reach to such understanding, which are very crucial with President Trump and his staff.
Kobi, do you agree with that assessment, playing it one day at a time? That's what Israel can do at the moment?
I have 2 or 3 comments in this regard. The first comment is that even if the ISF, the International Stabilization Force, will be established and will begin operating in the Gaza Strip, if somebody believes that this force will be able to tackle Hamas and to dismantle Hamas, he lives or she lives under very heavy illusions. Okay, there is no entity in the entire globe, from edge to edge, that is willing and capable to tackle Hamas and to dismantle Hamas. And the only entity that exists that has the will and the capacity to do that is the IDF. And at the end of the day, it will be done by the IDF if Hamas will not comply voluntarily to do that, and I do not believe that Hamas will do it voluntarily. The second comment is that Hamas, and it goes back to your question about what is the essence of the ultimatum of 48 hours, okay? I can tell you, and I think that this is in a very high probability prediction, what Hamas will do. In the coming 48 hours, Hamas will release another 2-3 bodies, okay? And by releasing 2-3 bodies and saying that they have huge difficulties to reach to the other bodies and they need more time, they eventually will dismantle the ultimatum of President Trump. And Hamas will be happy with that because they will be able to continue wasting time and earning time. And President Trump will be happy because he will say, you see, 3 days they didn't release even a single body. Once I issue the ultimatum, they are releasing 2 bodies or 3 bodies, and they will continue to do that. And these are going to be the rules of the game, okay? Until President Trump will feel that enough is enough, and then he will declare, or will say that Hamas does not comply, that Hamas actually opened by itself the gate of heaven, and Israel will resume the war against Hamas and will do what it has to do in order to dismantle Hamas. And this might be in parallel to the first implementation of the Trump in the southern part of the Gaza Strip, which there is in the places that there is no presence of Hamas. Okay, so the mechanism of the 3 components, the ISF, the technocrats government, and the peace board, can be established and begin operating in these areas, and this will be a living alternative to Hamas in the north, where Israel there in the north will fight Hamas in order to dismantle it until this mechanism will be able to expand itself and to get effective control over the entire Gaza Strip.
Professor Kobi Michael, thank you so much for joining us today and for your insights.
Thank you for having us.
Thank you.